Hello. A little behind on doing these. Well, we're not behind, but meant to do this one last week. Um, and that was because last Thursday, was Dyslexia Awareness Day, or Dyslexia Awareness Week, the full week. Bit more of a personal one because I do have dyslexia, or I was, yeah, I do have dyslexia. I was never diagnosed with it, but I do have it. Um, and I the reason it was never properly diagnosed was mostly because of my eyesight, to be honest. Um, I guess there was lots of difficulties coming there. But anyway, the reason I'm kind of covering this is because it is personal, but it's also very reflective on the role I play in my job, in my placement. Um, and it very much covers this social model of disability that we look at a lot um, in our role, and I'm now really kind of passionate and believe in. And this model basically uh, highlights that people are not disabled because of their impairment. People are disabled because of society, of the way society works and the mindset of society. Um, so, for example, if um, a student can't get into their classroom because they're using a wheelchair, it's not because of their impairment they can't get in that room. It's because society hasn't been um, accommodating to that impairment. Um, and yeah, it was quite. I think on the day last week, it was quite. It was quite eye-opening thinking about it because it's not something I've engaged a lot with in my life. Just dyslexia part, and I guess generally, um, my disabilities in general. Um, I might get into that later, might not. Um, it's Yeah. So I mean, this all came up when I saw a tweet from a government minister, Minister for Ireland. Don't know what his name is. Um, and he essentially said all this stuff about how, oh, I stand with everyone who has dyslexia. I was someone who had dyslexia myself in the past, and I look where I am now. I'm all big and that kind of stuff. And my thoughts kind of went to actually, well, yeah, your achievements are great, but um, it's not people's dyslexia holding them back. The social model of disability that I've been talking about, it advocates that um, nobody, in a sense, is disabled. Everyone is able. It's just society and the way we live our lives um, impedes what we do. So, for example, when it comes to dyslexia, people who struggle with reading, um, and it's not just those who are diagnosed with it, it's people who may show signs but don't necessarily reach the tick all the diagnosis boxes. Um, so when it comes to that, we've got our book, so for example, in schools, we've got our books, we've got our resources, but they're designed in a particular way for those who are um, neurotypical in a sense. Um, with this kind of so-called normal, I guess. Um, but in fact, no one should be able, no one should have to, under this model, nobody should have to struggle at all. Um, everybody is able. Um, yeah, and I think the point I'm trying to make is that actually, um, when coming back to what I'm actually doing, um, I think the idea is not to look at an impairment, learning difficulty, or anything like that as disabling, but look at it um, as though we'd look at, sex, race, gender, um, anything like that, which it is categorized like that, but it's not treated like that. That's not how disability is treated. Disability is treated as something a whole lot different. Um, when we work with people with disabilities, we should be treating them as though they're abled. And even when that comes to people with the basic learning needs, it's not the case. And I mean, for me, I've um, my needs have been relatively, although I've required a lot of support, my needs have been relatively simple. I've been able to learn and I've been able to get you to university, but that's only because I've had um, supportive kind of school life. I supported teachers and assistants and parents, um, but they have been enabling me. But very often you don't get that, and I think sometimes we need more in our lives than just schools and parents to be enabling us. We need um, the rest of society. This might be sounding really repetitive, I guess, but um, we need employers, businesses, governments. We need them to think about how they can be enabling to people with disabilities, just as they would be towards those of different sexes or different genders, different races, different ethnicities, different ages. Um, yeah, this has taken a bit of a different turn to what I figured. Um, But yeah, I mean, my experiences are going to be a lot different to many other people, just because of my visual impairment. With dyslexia, how I very often struggled was reading out loud. I cannot um, I can read in my head fine, but um, re to for me to read something out loud, um, I very often look at a text and just kind of not know where I am or what I'm saying. I'll go along a line and completely say a word that's not there, or say half a word, and nothing really makes sense when I read something out loud. Um, However, normally when I'm reading in my head, I'm fine, and I can usually um, understand stuff fairly well reading in my head. So that's never been a problem. But for me, it's always been reading out loud, and that's not to do with my eyesight. That's literally just been me struggling to both articulate what's going through my head, and um, yeah, I guess a good way of putting it is I see everything that's written there. So if I'm reading a book, I can see everything that's on that page. I can see every word there. But once it goes through my head and comes out my mouth, it's all a bit jumbled up. Um, so yeah, but I mean that's not that shouldn't hold me back. That shouldn't hold me back, and it shouldn't hold anyone back. Um, you know, again, society needs to be enabling to those who struggle with things like that. Um, because of that, I'm going to find it very hard in the future to, read speeches, for example, if I have a line I want to go down, or um, book reading for I don't know. Um, you know, I can quite easily get around that. Not that I'd like to be able to do speeches maybe one day, but it's not the easiest. Um, Struggling with it, and I mean, if I struggle with something like that, I mean, God, how you know, people with you know, some people really struggle to read. There was a program on ITV or Channel 4 recently, and they had um, young adults all through their lives who have struggled um, a lot with dyslexia mostly, and a lot of them had been kind of put down at school because they were almost so dyslexic they couldn't do anything. Um, yeah, it's just kind of crazy how disabling society is. We're coming up to 2021, and people are still struggling with things like this. And yeah, I'd love to do something about my visual impairment another day, because I've got so many. That's another whole rant about that. But with dyslexia, I've had those disabling moments. I've heard teachers um, I've heard teachers utter the words, "What dyslexic kid wrote that?" What does that say to anyone? This was in front of me, myself, and another friend who was also dyslexic. I've had people who I would have thought had been a bit more supportive, I guess, or at least as close, be surprised that I'm dyslexic. I've also had it from employers and generally other people. and that kind of mindset comes with the idea that people with dyslexia aren't generally that with it, which is the case. Well, sorry, that was the wrong word to use there. Um, you know, people with dyslexia don't necessarily have to be smart. There's the whole thing of Alan Sugar, Isaac Newton, whoever. Um, they all had dyslexia, so you can achieve all kind of like they did. But I think the main reason people don't achieve is again because they're not enabled. They're not enabled by society. Um, yeah, it's kind of crazy, and I it's really turned into a rant now, which I didn't mean to do. Yeah, sorry, going back to my job, I think really what I'm going to be focusing on, well, at least one of the things I'm going to be focusing on over the next, well, hopefully until I finish my placement, is enabling again, helping, get, I guess society is quite a big step, but getting employers at the very least enabling to those who are they're employing and eventually those who are working for them. So one of the things I'm doing at the moment is working on a online accessibility offer to be used by employers or for social groups or meetings, webinars, and so on. For any conferencing app, mostly Zoom, but Google Hangouts and Teams as well. And I guess there's so much to do there. I found a really good group that look at it. But I mean, there's so much to do there around both kind of physical accessibility, so considering people's visual and hearing impairments as well as mobility. You got hardware and software issues to consider. But then you've also got the kind of learning needs, kind of the kind of the neurodiverse group as well. You've got to consider, which is probably the group that's often missed or ignored. Yeah, but then I guess there's a good amount of what employers need to do online that actually should be done kind of in the workplace already. So one thing we've been discussing is how employers should give individuals the interview questions before they have a job interview, because an interview is not a quiz. An interview is not an exam. It's not testing how well they can speak on the spot. Introverts think as they speak, very much as I'm doing. Someone like me really struggles to think then speak. I'd love to be able to speak and not always make sense what comes out my mouth, but I'm thinking as I do, and sometimes really big things I kind of discover as I'm speaking. And that's how a lot of people work. A lot of people are introverts. That's how they perform better. And even to like the introverted group, society is not enabling. It's just it's so incredible to think about how how much what how much we could be much more we could be doing. And these are really simple things. It's not like um, it's not like as it's not like making a massive super building that's super accessible. It's doing the littlest things, and I think this is a great time to do it because we're all online, we're all in the same kind of situations. So working out accessibility at this stage is great, that then can be carried out into the workplace once the government have told us we can go out there. And yeah, oh God, this has been such a big rant, and I didn't think it would be. I didn't think it'd go in this direction, and I can't quite remember which direction I was planning to go in the first place. But again, this is probably a really good example, to be fair. This is a great way for me to both talk about my experiences, but also reflect. I'm able to speak really well doing it. Well, not necessarily well, but considering my rant, but I can eventually articulate what I'm trying to say rather than my spending what could be, let's say, hours just writing 300 words about my day. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, I think there's lots of things to kind of there's lots of things to touch on there, which I'll probably do in another video, including my visual impairment. Neurodiversity is another one. Yeah, there's probably a few other things there. But yeah, this is I'm finding this really exciting now, getting into this, and I really want to engage with this kind of area more than I have done in the past. I'm already really into activism, so I'd hope maybe I can go down that road, possibly, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, all really exciting, and I mean, I'm I'm in a really good position in my placement because I guess I'm kind of the person we're kind of trying to attract as a Dynamite member. So I explained last time what our plan was, and I'm the kind of person we're trying to attract. So it's great to be looking at this and looking kind of how we can actually improve. And on the co-production side, I bring all I do bring to this, just because of my own personal experiences. I wasn't necessarily diagnosed with dyslexia, but I've always had support because of my other needs. It's really good to look at the neurodiversity stuff. So yeah, it's been quite it's been quite eye-opening so far, and especially this week I felt like I've learned a lot. Yeah, it's good to reflect like this, I guess, and I know this is a really big grant, but I think that's quite a nice way for me to reflect as well, because I hope that all this makes sense what I'm trying to say. Yeah, society should be enabling and whatnot. I'll leave it there just so I stop. All right. See ya. Bye.